Hello, welcome to the Michael Sisco Show. I'm your host, Michael Sisco. Just me today. Decided to, I did a poll on my Telegram, seeing if people would be interested in whether or not they think I should do a daily show or not. It was about 50-50. I think slightly more of you said that I shouldn't, so I'm not. I'm doing Monday through Thursday. Maybe occasionally I'll do a show on the weekend, but I have an upcoming project for which I will announce on April 2nd. But I think that doing more shows would be kind of congruent with that and, quite frankly, helpful. So be doing the plan is Monday through Wednesday at 1 o'clock, and Thursday will be evenings most of the time around 8 p.m. But it'll be kind of a flex day. So that's the plan. Obviously, doing a daily show, I'll probably talk more about current events, news, but capping it off with more of a conceptual, either political concept towards the end. Maybe mixing in a little bit of history on occasion. I might even dedicate one day a week towards more of a historical or philosophical concept. But I appreciate those of you who will be tuning in today in the middle of the afternoon. I know we have most of the AF guys stream in the evenings, so maybe I can be a daytime staple for you to listen to at work. And for the podcast listeners, only the Thursday episodes will be uploaded to the RSS feed. So most of the daily shows will not be on the podcast. So, and I'm trying to figure out if maybe I should one day's episode should only be for patrons. I don't know, but one change that we did do, if you subscribe as a patron to Patreon, we will invite you to join the Saints Edward Book Club for an interview. So it's not a guarantee that you get in because we have to vet. We don't just we got to make sure that you're, one, not up to no good. Make sure that you align with our beliefs and aren't going to cause trouble and are a well-adjusted human being. So, but to get an invite, you will have to sign up as a pledge on Patreon. As long as we're on Patreon, at some point we might have to switch services, but not doing that now. Also, I don't know how many of you remember from the old Hearth and Fire days where it was just a podcast, but I used to push this book all the time. It's called The Bowl of Tears and Solace by Garth T. Ogle. It's actually a science fiction, and I know most science fictions these days have underlying assumptions that are basically modernist, post and progressive in nature. But this one is quite the opposite. And it's, what? Keck says, "Hail to our beloved Michael Siskovich, hetman of the Potomac Cossacks." Okay. But anyways, back to The Bowl of Tears and Solace. I want to start kind of pushing it again because Garth is nearly completed on the sequel. And so I'd like to sell the rest of these and perhaps, get this going again before his sequel comes out. But it's really good. Basically, it's a good escape, a good alternative for sci-fi fans to not be inundated with just retarded ideas as the underlying precepts. So the only place that it is available right now is saintsedwardmedia.com. Click store. And that's the only item in the store. Been wanting to make merchandise for the company, but we just haven't gotten around to it quite yet. Anyways, I went home, not home, but to my old home, visited some family this weekend, went to my old parish. But on the way back this morning, I decided to, in preparation for the show, let's see what NPR is talking about. And they were talking about the COVID-19 vaccine. And it was interesting. They were doing call-ins, letting people discuss why they haven't gotten a vaccine or why they did get a vaccine, pushing their experience with it. And the first caller that I heard was actually a Black lady who was like, I'm not getting the vaccine because my mother, my 99-year-old mother, who was healthy for her age, took the vaccine and is now bedridden because of it and extremely sick from the COVID vaccine. By the way, Entropy is up and running, so feel free to send in super chats. But anyways, this mother, she was she's had adverse side effects to the vaccine, and the host, as soon as she gets off, segues into talking about how most vaccine hesitant people are white. And so it's predominantly the people not taking the vaccine are white people. Now, this lady was obviously Black, which, I could just tell. It was obvious by the way she was talking, and it was just, she was obviously a Black lady. And then the next call was this just giddy woman who was so happy that she got the vaccine. She felt like this was so historical that she had to frame her Band-Aids. She framed her Band-Aids. And she was talking about how it was administered by the National Guard. Like, this is such a this was so perfect, and it was great. Like, imagine being administered something by the National Guard and thinking that that's a good thing. That's just insane. But I wanted to cover, and the Washington Post put out a piece today that, well, they covered a few things actually, but they put out something. I saw Breaking 911 put it out. It was an op-ed, I think. Let me see if I can pull it up on my phone. I'm not going to screen share Telegram, but let's see. I mean, they basically said that that life will not return to normal for the unvaccinated, but that people's extended family, let's see, they put out a lot of stuff today. I can't find it, but it pretty much said that sane people will refuse to see their extended family members that are unvaccinated, which makes no sense, because if you trust the vaccine and it works, then you shouldn't be afraid to be around unvaccinated people. But what it really is just an affirmation of basically the religion of scientism, like pseudoscientism religion, that you got to take the vaccine. It's like a religious thing. It's almost like a sacrament to them. So, yeah, Brandon, we won't be able to consume not taking the vaccine. But there are plenty of reasons for sane people to, be a little cautious, and I'm going to go over some of those right now. Just three. Let's see. Can you guys see my screen? Yeah. So just 3 days ago, I know some boxer died from taking the vaccine, but just 3 days ago, a healthy 39-year-old mother in Utah with no underlying conditions died after receiving her second dose of the Moderna vaccine. Health officials are awaiting autopsy results to see if the vaccine had anything to do with her death. And this case has some people asking if the vaccines actually pose a risk. So she was a mom of one, was a surgical tech for a plastic surgeon. She got the COVID-19 vaccine. I know a lot of healthcare workers are pressured into it, and a lot of their jobs or employment depends on getting it. So apparently she only experienced a sore arm after her first dose of the Moderna vaccine with no other side effects, but after her second dose, things took a turn. She got sick right away with soreness at the shot location. Then she started getting sick, and then she started complaining that she was drinking a lot of fluids, but she couldn't pee, and then she felt a little bit better the next day, says Alfred Hawley, her father. Cassidy got her second dose on Monday, February 1st. 3 days later, she was in the ER. Her blood test showed she had become very sick, and she was life-flighted to a trauma center. Doctors tried to stabilize her for a liver transplant, but she died before that could happen. Pay attention to the liver thing, because I believe that the boxing guy had the same thing. It seems to be, I'm seeing liver as a common theme here with the people that are dying from these vaccines. These vaccines are safe and effective, and we certainly understand that there have been reports in the media of people who have died after receiving a shot. Dr. Scott Harris, the state health officer, said, okay. And so I don't want to read this whole article because we have this article. Keep in mind, that was the Moderna vaccine. But here on the redelephants.com, which is actually, this has also been covered in the Washington Post, Germany suspends the AstraZeneca vaccinations, joining several other countries. They say several, but it was really 9 other countries. So I think 10 or 11 countries have suspended the AstraZeneca vaccine after adverse reactions following them. So following the release of data from phase 3 trials on 9 November, vaccine makers Pfizer and BioNTech deployed their vaccines under emergency use rules. The developer of another leading vaccine, Moderna, did the same. Now we just heard Moderna, 39-year-old woman, dies after her second dose. When a vaccine is granted emergency approval, the vaccine is rushed through. Companies might not have enough data to establish long-term outcomes, such as safety. The trial phases for a vaccine typically last for multiple years to establish if the vaccine is truly safe. But remember, if you're sane, you should be all about taking it. This did not happen. From Johnson & Johnson, phase 1 testing marks the first time the vaccine is tested in a small group of adults, usually between 20 to 80 people, to evaluate its safety and measure the immune response it gets. Phase 2A, studies aim to determine the most effective dose and expand the safety experience with the vaccine. Researchers look for expected reactions to the vaccine, which could include anticipated adverse events like headache, muscle pain, redness and swelling at the injection site, or low-grade fevers, as well as serious adverse events. Phase 1 and 2A clinical trials normally last several months to even a year before proceeding to Phase 2B or Phase 3 trials, in which the pool of people receiving the vaccine increases. Companies combined Phase 1 and 2 trials for its investigational SARS-CoV-2 vaccine into one phase, known as 1-2A. Many experts urged against the combination of trials or rushing the vaccine. Phase 3 is a stage of the clinical trial where even more volunteers receive the vaccine to study whether it's actually effective. Phase 3 trials usually take multiple years. Phase 4, after a successful Phase 3 trial, vaccine manufacturers submit an application to regulatory bodies, such as the European Commission or the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, At this stage, clinical trial data is reviewed to make sure the vaccine is safe and effective. The FDA also monitors adverse events that may occur related to receiving the vaccine, including through its vaccine adverse event reporting system and phase 4 clinical trials. Optional studies pharmaceutical companies may be required to perform after a vaccine is licensed to continue to monitor safety and effectiveness. The end result, a vaccine for COVID-19 that's been developed in months, which is something that has been unheard of before. Bill Gates once acknowledged that trials are going to have to be skipped or combined in order to rush the vaccine out. Science is going to have to be limited, Gates suggests in one interview. So let's look at then he gets into the data from vaccine research in reality. So an anonymous source at a vaccine research facility provided us with some alarming preliminary data. Out of our 267 participants, 21% exhibited one of these adverse reactions: anaphylaxis, permanent paralysis, Bell's palsy, or cardiac arrest. And I think we're seeing the permanent paralysis quite a bit. 70% of the 21% that exhibited adverse reactions were women. These findings were from the initial injection. Reports released from Pfizer and Moderna show that some COVID-19 vaccine trial participants experienced a type of facial paralysis called Bell's palsy. In the weeks after vaccination, while rare, Bell's palsy is a nerve condition that causes partial or complete weakness of one side of the face. The symptoms, like a sagging eyebrow or drooping mouth, come on suddenly and typically resolve over the course of a few weeks or months, while it's usually difficult to pinpoint a cause. Viral infections can trigger Bell's palsy. I'm going to skip down to, let's check for comments. Let's see. Yeah, Kek says, you can't get the virus if you die from the shots. They're not completely ineffective. Yeah. Checking for super chats. No super chats yet. Let's see. According to the most recent data, almost 1,000 people have died after taking the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines, and about 495 have passed away after receiving the Moderna vaccine, and 475 after taking the Pfizer gene. And then, of course, he goes on to explain that gene therapy is not a vaccine, according to the traditional but recently changed definition of a vaccine. I don't want to get quite too much in this, but they're basically they're inserting the instructions of how to fight the virus into your genome, into your DNA. And this is completely experimental, has never been done before. And then he said, many Americans don't want it, including healthcare workers, because these people, they see they see it. And even this is kind of funny. I should have did share audio on the split screen so I could, show you the clip of Mark Zuckerberg expressing in a private Zoom call, some dismay or some caution. But, none of this is really getting too much mainstream play, although I'm actually surprised that the Washington Post even covered Germany suspending the AstraZeneca vaccine. But frankly, they should be suspending all of them. But of course, the World Health Organization came out about in the last hour and said that you shouldn't be suspending any of these vaccines. So Yeah. So the World Health Organization says don't worry about these blood conditions or paralysis or any of these or the deaths. So I would be interested if somebody smart at math would break down, maybe you can do this. Look up, compare the number of deaths from the vaccine and see what the percentage is from the people who have been vaccinated. But I mean, the trick is, and see what's more deadly, the vaccine or the coronavirus, according to the percentages. But you have to be careful because you can't go off of the number of vaccinations issued. Go off of the amount of people vaccinated. I don't know, because they're counting like the second doses into some of those numbers that are being issued. Now we have a good sized audience today. So welcome to the new edition of the daily edition of the Michael Sisco show. Squinto Jones, or the almost daily. Squinto Jones says, I'm Jared Holt, and I emphatically do not endorse the vaccines. Do not take the vaccine. That's funny. I thought about covering the let me see here. I'm not, speaking of Jared Holt, this guy, and I'm not a big, I don't quite know what I really think of Jason Kessler. He was the organizer. Nor do I really know that I really want to associate with this dude. But let's see. He did write an article for VDare in which he pretty much, we'll show it to you guys. I know that sometimes you can't really read the articles all that clearly on the screen, but let's see if this loads. But Jason Kessler, here we go. Doxing, wrote an article called Doxing the Doxers. Antifa's war against regular Americans is run by a spoiled rich kid. And he basically just talks, he reveals some, it's turnabout is fair play, man. He basically doxed, let's see, the anti-fash Gordon guy, Jared Holt, of course. He doesn't like give their address, but he basically outs their rich family members. Let's see. Now Jared Holt was very upset and was basically cussing Jason Kessler out. Like, how could you do this? Showing pictures of my dead family members. As if they would care, But, and then I actually, I put out a gab about, turnabout's fair play, loser. You've been doing this, literally been doing this to other people, and you're upset. And Jason Kessler re-gabbed me, reposted me, which I'm like, do I want to be associated with? I don't know. I really shouldn't. I mean, all he did was organize 2 legally permitted events, so who cares? But he organized Unite the Right 1 and Unite the Right 2. If you guys don't know what that is, but he goes, Jared L. Holt is a media personality who attacks conservative journalists while he chafes at being linked to Antifa. He continues to invite the association by repeatedly working with notorious extremists like Conger and Emily Gorsinki. Blah, blah, blah. Because Holt is from Bentonville, Arkansas, readers might think his roots are humble. In fact, he's just another rich kid. Holt's father, Larry Allen Holt, is a recently retired corporate executive with J.B. Hunt, the trucking company. Estimates of compensation for a J.B. Hunt national account executive is estimated at a $81,664 base pay with $34,000 in additional compensation, so about $116,000 per year. Holt's stepmother, Lisa Hayward Wadlin, or Wadlin, I don't know, is head of tax at Netflix, the single highest paying job on the list, at about $350,000 per year. Salary-wise, the Holts are in the top 2% of American workers, excluding investments in real property. Upon leaving Arkansas for Washington, D.C., Jared Holt immediately hooked up with George Soros's Media Matters and People for the American Way. He used the substantial resources at his disposal to target conservative journalists like Ashley Ray Goldenberg, a first-generation college grad and daughter of two blue-collar parents, a slight, unassuming reporter with Capital Research Center. Before Holt's attack, Goldenberg made the mistake of challenging leftist regime media hysterics about the racist whites who murder unarmed blacks. In particular, Holt attacked her for highlighting inconvenient facts in the Ahmaud Arbery case. So yeah, I basically got her fired, even though, he called her a Nazi and she's Jewish. She's like 100% Ashkenazi. And then he, of course, also went after Cassandra Fairbanks. He's going after me. He's written 2 hit pieces on me. So, yeah. Squinto Jones says, Kessler is a hack. He wrote a hits piece on me. Squinto says, but for real, look at those people on the main photo of that article. They look like the leftist versions of Baked, Richard Spencer, and Nina Byzantia. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to talk down on like Baked Alaska, but Richard, they're kind of it's kind of like trust fund baby on the left, trust fund baby on the right, But it's funny because people like the hypocrisy here is, Jared Holt purports to be this, for the working class, but here he is trying to destroy, people like me, working class white people that are conservative, and even Ashley Ray there, she's she comes from humble roots, and he's just going after people that he disagrees with from. It is a form of class. It almost seems like it could be a form of class warfare. Let's get these dirty, deplorable people. Let's destroy their lives and means of supporting themselves. But they're tied up in this all kind of segues kind of into my next topic, which is big tech and their let's see, Squinto's still talking about Baked, but no, I mean these people are kind of eccentric, but as we've seen, we have legal protections again for free speech and in the United States. So, but what the establishment has done is they figured out a way to utilize the corporate system as a kind of proxy enforcement mechanism. And their way of squashing dissent is to persecute political dissidents through either deplatforming on big tech, through firing us. Corporations will fire us for espousing our views, especially traditionalist Christian views, or any of these things. And recently, like they've even obviously the America First movement is an ascending force that is gaining steam, and I view this as a white pill. That this to me, the actions that they are taking now are actually pretty desperate. And it means that they're a dying ideological movement. And I will include all forms of liberalism, such as establishment type Republicans, because they're liberal too. So let me but Instagram, social media platforms, I think it was Instagram and TikTok, have banned users from even mentioning the name Nicholas J. Fuentes. So, and this comes after, of course, we know thousands of conservatives were banned from, Twitter and Facebook over the last couple of months. I deleted them just kind of out of, anger over why am I supporting these platforms? Because remember, we are the product for big tech. We are the product. And just by having an account, we're still propping them up. But of course, Fuentes has been the subject of attacks from ABC News, and they're basically trying to get him kicked off of Twitter. And they're citing Megan Squire, who works for the SPLC. And Fuentes pointed this out on his show the other night. Megan Squire has publicly endorsed violence from Antifa. And so the expert that ABC News has cited to justify trying to get Nick Fuentes banned from Twitter is Megan Squire. Megan Squire. So, oh yeah, and of course this is the hashtag F-word white people is allowed on Twitter, but we're not even allowed to say, or whatever that is. I don't know what platform that is. But of course you can advocate for violence if you're on the left, like, so comrade, you must kill Donald Trump, or kill Donald Trump. This is allowed, but we're bad people. We're not allowed here. Doorman360, appreciate the super chat. My corporate job will probably fire me for refusing the happy, healthy jab. I am making moves to soften the blow before they purge us dissidents. Yeah, I don't know, man. I've seen some pushback a little bit. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure they're going to try. You might be, I don't know what state you live in, but you might want to start looking into the laws now. Maybe even contact your state legislator or your congressman. They might be able to help. Let's see, nobody on entropy yet. But yeah, big tech, they're coming for us. And I do want to say, I get a lot of crap for, oh yeah, I did actually, Doorman, I looked into New Jersey. There really isn't, I don't think there's really any sort of exemptions in New Jersey. So I would say find a job somewhere else. Why don't you come to West Virginia? Come to West Virginia, find a gig. You don't need to make as much money. So just because look at the difference in the cost of living. And Squinto, I can't say that comment. Come on, man. Come on, get the lawyer to fight in court. So behave, bro. Behave. But and I know a lot of us like to hate on Laura Loomer, and I disagree with her on several major things, but she is being pretty effective in raising awareness with the big tech things, and she's even, and so we have to take a pragmatic approach to Laura Loomer, right? We can still be We don't have to cave or compromise on what we disagree with her on, but we can ally with her on specific issues such as getting control, reining in big tech. And she's doing good work today because she is testifying. I don't know if it's testifying, but she's speaking to the Florida legislature, I think at 3:45, so in just over an hour. She'll be speaking to them about their they have proposed a bill to help with protecting political dissidents and whatnot, and political dissent on big tech platforms. But she has found loopholes that she wants to have closed in the bill. She wants to improve the bill, and they actually invited her to come express her grievances with the current bill so that perhaps they can fix it, basically. And so, I will say I understand the hesitancy to embrace Laura Loomer, and I'm not asking anybody to embrace her in like this, if you don't want to support her for reasons, I get it, but pragmatically and for building, these political alliances, she's on our side when it comes to the fight against big tech. She's also publicly defended America First. She attended AFPAC. She's defended Nick Fuentes. And even though we all know that we disagree on certain things, she has also made it clear that she supports us on quite a bit of our right to express our views, especially on big tech. And so let's all lay low. Let's be a little nicer to Laura Loomer, okay? Jack Robbins says, I want to see Nick and George. What? Oh, come on. I shouldn't have even clicked on that. Squinto Jones says, when will Laura Loomer convert to Orthodoxy? I don't know. Honestly, the best thing we can do is pray for her. I know she's been exposed to it to some degree. So Doorman 360, maybe I'll have to move to West Virginia and move closer to Holy Cross Monastery. I love Holy Cross Monastery. I typically visit at least once a year. It's been a little while before since I've had a chance. It's been about a year, actually. I prefer. So I don't really. It's beautiful in the area that they are. I just prefer the northern part of West Virginia, like Congressional District 1. So that's what I just like it up here. I prefer the northern part of the state, but it's not that far of a drive for me to visit the monastery. It's like 5 hours. Not the worst drive. It's still a pilgrimage. It's still something special to go visit Holy Cross Hermitage. I am close though. I'm only a few hours away from St. Nina's Monastery, which is a female monastery. It's Orthodox, a beautiful liturgy. The nuns are very nice. So I go to liturgy there quite a bit, actually. And they make good coffee. They roast coffee there. So very good, very good. On to, let me just check entropy real quick. Nothing on entropy. Let me close out some of these tabs. So that's pretty much most of the news that I wanted to cover today. I am going to drop the invite link. We are taking calls. I'm going to take some calls if you guys want to call in. This was actually an idea from one of my friends on Gab. So on Mondays, we're going to take calls. So if you want to hop on the stream for a few minutes, just click that link there and I'll see you in the little holding area. So just wait. When I'm ready for you, I will bring you on. And if you want to ask a question, ask a question. So Monday is call-in day. So call-in Monday. I should have posted it earlier because we only have about 20 minutes left for the show. But we do have some good news. I know most of you remember the petition that I put out about imploring our bishops to reopen to full capacity. Many of you have submitted letters to your bishops and have requested the list of signatures to submit with the letter. Now, one of you, I am pretty certain about this, submitted it to the Carpatho-Russian Archdiocese. And surprisingly, because they are under the Ecumenical Patriarch, but they have a pretty large degree of autonomy. And surprisingly, the Metropolitan, I think his name is Gregory of Nyssa, Metropolitan Gregory of Nyssa, has decided that going into entropy looks like it's, I don't know when you checked entropy, but it appears to be working right now. That maybe I put the wrong link in the description, but looks to be working on my end. Anyways, the Metropolitan of the Carpatho-Russian Archdiocese in America has basically reopened at full capacity across the country for Lent, Holy Week, and Pascha. And I can't say that he didn't mention the petition, but I do think that we may have had a little bit of something to do with it. So I'm looking forward to more bishops following in his footsteps. Now, I do want to say that coffee hour is an essential part of the Orthodox life in America, because fellowship between our fellow Orthodox Christians is also important. And I'm not quite willing to call out this metropolitan, but a prominent archdiocese in America has issued a similar letter along the lines of opening capacity more, but no matter what the local municipality says, you can't have coffee hour. And even though I know in one area, the restaurants in the county, or the authority over restaurants and dining, has said it's totally okay to have coffee hour, but the Metropolitan says, I don't care, you can't do it. And so I'm a little upset about that. It's not my bishop. I haven't figured out how to quite address this, because, hey, I do, on the one hand, my main concern is being able to go to liturgy, receive the Eucharist without restriction. But on the other hand, coffee hour is kind of important. Looks like we have Patrick from New Jersey calling in. What's going on, Patrick? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can. You're live. What's up, buddy?
Yeah. I just found, I was on Gab not too long ago, and I just so happened to find your stream and everything like that, and you're an Orthodox, and I've been thinking about converting, but I just don't know where to start because there's so many Orthodox dioceses.
Okay. Let's see. Where do you live in New Jersey by chance? You don't get too detailed, but
I live roughly around kind of like Middlesex area, Mercer County.
Okay. What I can do is I have friends in New Jersey, Orthodox friends. If you I don't know if you can reach out to me privately, but I can get you squared away. I kind of prefer road core, but I also like my services to be in English. Just, so what I would say is usually the friendliest for inquirers would be either an English-speaking road core parish, OCA, or Antiochian, because they're generally going to be in English. The more traditional would be road core. So, but you might have a lot of the parishes in your area, especially New Jersey, are going to be very ethnic. So the liturgies might be and Church Slavonic. So I don't know if that would be a hindrance to you. But yeah, just shoot me a message. Is there such a thing as a DM on Gab? Is that a real thing?
I don't think it is. I haven't seen anything about a DM on Gab. Like, that's
All
kind of
right. Well, shoot me an email. Michael.Sisco@saintsedwardmedia.com, and I'll try and get you squared away.
okay. And I had another question.
Okay.
Yes, with the America First movement and Nick Fuentes and Lauren Witzke, would you agree that the reason why we're getting so much woke propaganda is because they think that they're losing and not because they're trying to change? Because somebody said if their propaganda was so effective, they wouldn't need to push it so hard if they were winning.
I mean, I do think that I don't know that they're. I think they would be pushing it. I think there's some truth to that, but I do, yeah, maybe, because they're the acceleration of it seems to be very accelerated. So, perhaps let's see. It looks like I got an entropy chat, but yeah, I what I definitely think is that the excessive censorship and the debanking people, the acceleration and deplatforming. I think that is definitely the behavior of a desperate group. So yeah, I mean, I think some of their behavior is like, hey, we're losing, but I don't think that pushing, the transgenderism stuff in the way like that sort of wokeness is an effective strategy to win. So I don't know what the logic would be behind that. Maybe it's not logical. Maybe it's like maybe that's just a emotional reaction. I don't know. But I think it's ultimately the logical conclusion of their ideological framework anyways. So,
Okay.
But yeah, before I let you go, I have a super chat on Entropy from Doorman360. He says, check out St. Elizabeth at Jersey. It's Roquefort in England near Princeton. So,
oh, it's near Princeton.
Yeah, St. Elizabeth at Jersey, and it's in English and it's Roquefort. So if it's English and Roquefort, it's got to be good. So
okay.
But thank you for calling in. I like the Princeton area. I actually have visited a few times and walked around Princeton, and that's it's a little bougie, but I like it. So
extremely.
I've got a little bit of a bougie side of but anyways, thank you for calling in, Patrick. You have a wonderful day, and go check out St. Elizabeth. So
okay, may Christ be with you.
Christ be with you. Thank you. So well, that's pretty cool. I like taking calls. That's fun. We'll do that every Monday. So if anybody, we only have 12 more minutes, but if anybody else wants to call in, you're welcome. So we'll do that once a week. Maybe we'll just do it every show. But just remember, Patrick was very optical. I appreciate it. But when you call in, be optical. Don't be stupid. Don't use good judgment with what you say on my channel, and we can keep that going. If you're unoptical and you mention dumb things, we're gonna kick you. We're gonna ban you forever. But I did, the title. I'm running out of time, which is cool. But there's obviously he mentioned Lauren Witzke. There's a battle for the identity within the conservative movement, and Lauren kind of brought it to the forefront. And a good friend of mine, kind of expressed some dissatisfaction with what she said. Now, my friend was Lauren's been basically saying, "Hey, look, there's no room for LGBTQ and transgender aneurysm in the conservative party. The Republican Party is supposed to be the party of conservatives. There's no room for this here. Why are we giving these people platforms? Now, my friend, who I'm not going to name because I disagree with him. He, Duke of Earl says my sound is playing up. Let me try something. Is that better, Duke? But no, something on the back end of my PC. Anyways, let me know if it's improved at all. I hate this. How's that? I maybe this will put the split the bit rate a little bit. Is that any better? With the if I have the screen share on, does that sound a little better? Gents. It's manageable. Wiglass says it's manageable. So, all right, well, I will. Duke of Earl says still crackling. That sucks. But sometimes StreamYard used to do this to me a while ago, and it got better. And it hasn't done it to me in quite a while, but let me try something else. Let's see here. But anyways, as I was saying, Lauren Witt, I know Doorman says Lauren is on fire. She's right about conservatives. We put Christ first. And my friend was saying, well, I asked, he was like, do you really think this is smart for her to be going after Richard Grenell? And, and I said, well, yeah. And he goes, and I'm like, well, and I asked him the question, and I said, well, what are we conserving? And he goes, well, what are we conserving? The Constitution, right? And I said, well, is that your highest appeal? Like, is that the pinnacle of conservatism? Is this document called the Constitution, or are we going to appeal to something that transcends that? Because if the Constitution ceased to exist, would there still be something called a conservative movement? And what are we conserving, right? So what is the appeal? I know he brought up the Declaration of Independence, and it's it basically says that we have rights that come from God, inalienable rights from God. And I think that we've come to a point where we have to start questioning. I think if we're going to have a constitution, it's the rule of law. We should be governed according to this, but we also have to appeal to a higher authority of ultimate, absolute, and ultimate truth. And I think that is a more solid foundation for a conservative movement than, say, just constitutionalism. Because how far are we willing to extend that? How far are we willing to extend? Because you can twist. We've seen people twist and use the constitutionality of something to justify things that are ultimately extremely harmful, such as pornography. Drag queen story. I've seen people argue for the constitutionality of drag queens propagandizing your children in the library. I've seen constitutional arguments for pedophilia. And we used to have something called decency laws, but they've basically been struck down by a certain lobby who wanted to make pornography legal. And now we know that pornography is, and the argument was free speech. So apparently having sex on camera is a form of speech. But now we know that pornography leads to anxiety and depression, erectile dysfunction, other forms of mental illness. It destroys the family. And so we have to figure out as a movement, what do we really stand for? And yeah, Wiglaf makes a good point here. Private entities hold all the power now, and they can ruin your life without having to use the government or abide by the Constitution. Yeah, basically they rule us by proxy. So the elites and the establishment will enforce their law and their will on us via the private sector, because they can constitutionally do that. So I mean, preserving. And so I would say, what value are you bringing to the movement by, at this point, by preserving the constitutionality of anything, by preserving the Constitution for a document that was literally ripped to shreds by the Civil War? And so I'm not. And what's at the so if you want to make this argument from I'm not really gonna right now pick a side in the Civil War. I'm not getting into that, but by the letter of the law, the constitutionality was in favor of the South and the Confederacy, and the North made an appeal to. Even though we're not going to get, I don't even want to really reveal my position on this, but the North appealed to a higher, their justification for basically trashing the Constitution and making it an obsolete document was to preserve the Union over a moral issue, which was slavery. And so, without getting into who was right and who was wrong in the Civil War, the precedent is not behind, basically people like the Constitution when it fits their agenda. And now I do believe that if we're going to have a written Constitution, yeah, we should, the letter of the law should be abided by, but it should not be the basis of your conservatism. Like it's not where your ideology. It can't be the emanation of an ideology, because there was something behind that went in. There was an ideology that went into the Constitution, and I think maybe we should even be questioning some of the Enlightenment principles that went into that. And so that's all I'm going to say. I mean, I just think that, to me, my conservative movement, I'm appealing to God, to Christ, to Christian morals, and to me that is the highest appeal, is to God, not the Constitution. I like the Constitution for the most part. I think that if it was actually properly followed, maybe it would be better. Yeah, and like some things, some positions come out of it are reasonable. Like Rand Paul opposes the granting of foreign aid because it's unconstitutional, right? But I don't know if he's just using that as part of as a play, like as a justification for his real views or what. But I do want to say that while I respect the founding fathers, I do think that they were misguided in certain aspects. I think that they were somewhat naive on the nature of power, but the states ultimately formed the federal government. The states, the sovereign states, agreed to this union under this governing document. And implicit in that agreement is that it's a voluntary union. But we now know that this federal system that was supposed to be upheld by their sovereignty, that the sovereignty of these states, and this is part of the naivety that goes into it, and maybe I should do an entire show on it, but because they conceive sovereignty as like this abstract concept instead of a reality, they thought that the legitimacy would be determined by the state's voluntary involvement in this, right? And that they could theoretically secede and leave the union or rejoin. But what ended up happening was the federal government became this massively powerful entity that then began to lord over the states instead of the states lording over it. And the Civil War was kind of the pinnacle of that turn of the Fed holding ultimate power over the states. And so now you can't just break the union, you can't just leave, because ultimately that and even the Constitution wasn't really, we saw with the latest election, our constitutional options weren't really options, were they? So that's how I see it. I think that as a movement, we should be, like Nick Fuentes says, a reactionary right-wing movement. Our allegiance should be to God, to Christianity. It should be to our people, our nation, not to a document, not to even these things, really, these allegiances to Christ, to our people, our nation. These are higher than even an idea like a form of government or a form of economics. Like our allegiance is to our people. It's to Christ. It's to our people and our nation of people, not these, free market or constitution or these things are, in my opinion, quicksand. It's not solid ground for a real movement, and that's just my opinion. I'm sure some other conservatives may disagree, but to me, I common good. Like let's pursue the common good for Americans, and that's my politics rather than a nutshell. But yeah, Pondo says I conserve my youth's brand of liberalism, basically. So that's kind of the state of conservatism now, which is sad. But America First is here, and we are rising, and we are a force, and we're going to change that. So, but anyways, I appreciate those of you who super chatted today. Appreciate it. I think it's Dorian 360. So I'll be back tomorrow at, I think, 1 o'clock. Now, don't hold me to my times because, I might, doing this daily thing might be a little difficult, but I will be back tomorrow. I appreciate all the support, and I look forward to seeing you. So good showing today. 1 o'clock we had I think peaked at 20 people. So during at this time of the day, that's kind of surprising. And I really gave pretty short notice that I was going to be streaming. So I appreciate the support and see you guys tomorrow.